Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. I'm delighted to welcome my special guest today, Rowan Crozier MBE, who is the CEO at Brandauer & Co. and also chair of the National Advisory Board at Make UK. Welcome to the show, Rowan. Nice to have you on.
Thank you, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
Good. So we've been connected on LinkedIn for quite some time. I do sort of follow your regular posts, predominantly either about sort of the successes at Brandauer or general manufacturing things. But we got the chance to meet briefly at the Meet the Toolmaker event over in Telford last year. And from that, I got a strong sense of your passion really around STEM. And that's really, I think, a good place to start this discussion. So in your opinion, why is STEM so important to the future of UK manufacturing, Rowan?
Well, I think there's a myth that's going around that amongst parents and I suppose young children as a result of their influences from their parents that STEM is not necessarily a great choice for a career. It couldn't be more wrong. Manufacturing is alive and kicking in the UK, particularly advanced manufacturing, and manufacturers have good manufacturers are great employers, profitable, well-invested businesses, and employ lots and lots of people. And some of the best leaders and technologists and engineers in these businesses have come through an apprenticeship route into and found themselves manufacturing the stuff that makes a big difference. And they're the leaders of the future. They're the business people of the future as well. But sadly, or perhaps in stark contrast to some of those rumours, some of the best business leaders we have are engineers. Have come through the STEM education.
So how do we get more of a strong pipeline of STEM talent into manufacturing? I know you sort of mentioned parent schools, and it's sort of been off the radar for quite a long time, hasn't it? But of more recent years, there has been a bit of an upturn in the sort of reputation and I suppose the picture that manufacturing sends out to schools, youngsters, and parents. The industry had a bit of an outdated image, I think it would be fair to say. But as you say, with advanced manufacturing and a lot of the technology that's been coming online over the last sort of 10 or 20 years, it's a totally different landscape, isn't it, manufacturing? So how do we get more youngsters into STEM subjects with half an eye on perhaps a career in manufacturing or technology?
I don't think there's a single sort of platinum bullet answer to that question at all. I think it's got to come from every level. I do think the reputation or the image is on the up.
Yep.
And I think that's got to be recognised and promoted by all. And what do I mean by all? I mean by government. I mean by the engineering and manufacturing employers, by the training and skills establishments that support that journey, and schools, and parents, and there's that has got to be pushed from every level. I think so. That's sort of the first point. It needs to be recognised, and not just from old people like me. It's got to come from all the youngsters that have come through it and are beneficiaries of it as well. I try and push that in my business and get my guys engaged at different sort of career events and things like that. So they're sharing their experiences. It's more relatable for youngsters to hear it from people that aren't quite as old as their parents or grandparents.
Yes.
And that's really quite important. And then I suppose the next thing is tasters. Kids need to have tasters. Dare I say it, it needs to be on their curriculum from the very youngest levels. And we're not there yet. Primary school kids need to be making things, need to be seeing how broken things can be fixed, getting away and recognizing that we're not a throwaway culture. We want to recycle stuff. Things can be repaired. Things can be reused and repurposed for the better or for the gain. And they'll only get to know that at a young age by something that's relatable. So I think that's a really important part of it, and giving them, creating those opportunities either at school or by industry, or preferably both, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some fantastic facilities around. You touched on the sort of further education, the sort of training academies and apprenticeship providers and things like that. I know you wanted to talk about the tooling academy as well, which was it was launched as a sort of collaboration, if you like, between C. Brandauer and Incom Training, wasn't it? Do you want to
Yeah.
just tell us a little bit about that and how it sort of developed?
Yeah, of course. So I've been at Brandauer 13 years, and when I first came, the average age in the business was 58.
Wow.
We're now at an average age of 42. And the reason why that's come down is we've attracted more youngsters into our business and hung on to them through
Yeah.
their whole sort of educational life cycle. And indeed, a lot of them are still going through that. Um, and that starts for us with trying to encourage usually 16-year-olds out of finishing their GCSEs into an apprenticeship journey.
Yeah.
That we use two providers for that. One is Incom, who do the majority, and the other is Mate UK at the Aston Science Hub. Both of them are training providers, technical training providers, and they'll do apprenticeships, technical apprenticeships that can last anywhere between 2 years and 4 years, very roughly speaking.
Yep.
And that's really helped deliver where we are today. Coming back to your question about the sort of tooling academy that we launched, about 3 years ago, we saw a huge influx in demand for the types of high-speed presswork tooling we are capable of designing,
Yeah.
manufacturing, and assembling, and we needed more capacity. So I had this harebrained idea that we would create that capacity by opening a second facility that was capable of delivering that tooling.
Yeah.
But in parallel, we wanted to write a syllabus to upskill qualified engineers who'd come preferably through the apprenticeship route or the degree route, to be fair.
Yeah.
And that syllabus would upskill them from a base level of engineering to being what we see as a proficient early stage toolmaker. We call them
Yeah.
improver.
Yeah.
And hey, that's where the academy was born. I spoke to Gareth Jones and Becky Phillips, the owners of Incom, and sort of pitched this crazy idea to them and said, we need some space. We want to open a tool room, but I want to do it here, right inside your facility,
Right.
underutilized. I was quite brutal, if I'm honest. Underutilized. We can use all this capacity. But the
Yep.
bonus is you've got a manufacturer and a partnership under your roof. You've got a high-end tool room utilizing both your equipment and mine, creating revenue and growth for the Midlands. And we'll jointly write this syllabus that you can commercially sell to your clients to upskill engineers to be proficient toolmakers.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say. We very quickly drafted the syllabus. We signed a partnership agreement. We moved in about 2 months later.
Yeah.
We made about 15 high-speed progression tools in the first year of trading. We then opened the academy up, and our first client through there was Jaguar Land Rover, who took a
Wow.
cohort of six engineers through, and they came out the other side through that pilot scheme. Certainly a lot better in terms of toolmaking than they went in.
Yeah.
And we've now attracted West Midlands Combined Authority funding to allow to offer that out hugely subsidised to SMEs. So
Brilliant.
not just the big OEMs that can benefit, but SMEs. I want to just repeat, it's not for apprenticeship training. It dovetails into that, and it's advanced training for people that have completed and done well at an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Preferably had a couple of 3 years on the tools before then coming to this and upskilling what they do to be top of their game, I suppose. That's the plan.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
we're doing.
Well, it's fantastic to see because I suppose in the 25 years I've been recruiting, or nearly 25 years I've been recruiting in manufacturing, there's always been a drought of tool makers. You know, they're almost like I thought at one point when I was early on into the industry, they were going to be extinct while I was still working. And I'm just so happy to see a huge turnaround in that sort of trend. I can remember trying to fill a couple of toolmaker roles, back as I started just at the end of the last millennium. That's how long I've been in the game. And most of the toolmakers were they were sort of 40, 50, 60. I can remember a temporary toolmaker we used to put into a contract every time. I think it was might have even been, it was a contract for door latches, I think, automotive applications. And the business that we were supplying always used to ask for this guy. And he'd retired. He'd retired quite a few years ago. So he must have been knocking 70 when I first came across him. And every sort of year or every sort of 6 months or however long it was, they had a project come up. They would always ask for this guy. And I think in the end, after a few years, he sort of did hang his boots up. But it was just indicative of that time. Most factories with a tool room were they were always looking for tool makers, and there just weren't any. There were hardly any out on the market. But at least now, over the last few years, we've been seeing people coming into the industry and learning learning that technical capability from the ground up. So hopefully what you've done within income will sort of give some further impetus to other parts of industry to maybe do a similar thing where you've got that mix of a manufacturing business and a training provider. As you say, it dovetails in nicely. It's just a win-win for everybody. So
it is, and I think what you've said there and described, the market hasn't changed massively in terms of availability of toolmakers, certainly of a particular demographic.
Yeah.
There's plenty at the start of their career, and there's plenty at the end of their career, if you want to put it like that politely.
Yep.
In the middle, there's this abyss of a lack of investment from sort of the previous sort of 10 or 20 years, really. And what we're trying to do is to fast track the front end to sort of fill that skills gap in the middle. And that's why we did it. But at the back end, we're still getting guys that are working here, and we have to be really flexible about how we pay them, what hours they do, what we involve them with, ensuring they're contracted to pass on their knowledge as well is quite important, so that they're training the new ones coming through as well. We still do that now. That's been going on for the last sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10 years. We still recruit a lot of people between the ages of 55 and 70 in those roles, and they stay and they love it because they're working on top end tooling. But it's so important that we have that 3 plan that's bringing in the youngsters, making sure the guys that are most experienced are passing on their knowledge and stay with us as long as possible, and then have some sort of plan that fills that middle gap.
Knowledge transfer. I love that. I mean, it's a gold mine, isn't it? So many people are retiring every year and taking a vast amount of knowledge with them. And if we're not absolutely draining all of that into the next generation, it's just a valuable resource that just vanishes. So great to hear you doing that. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Design and Make Challenge? I know we spoke about it briefly when I saw you at the Meet the Toolmaker event, but for our audience, can you explain what it is, who it's for, and what the objectives are?
Yeah, so it sort of goes back to the sort of opening spiel that I gave earlier on around attracting youngsters at the right age and promoting manufacturing as a real live and a real career choice. And we do that by giving them hands-on experience of engineering and manufacturing in its purest form. So it was the brainchild of a network that we've been members of for, 14, 15 years now, called the Manufacturing Assembly Network, or MAN Group.
Yep.
Um, and there was a couple of guys in there that sort of thought we should, as a conglomerate of manufacturers, of which there's only 10 members in the group, why don't we work together to come up with something that promotes manufacturing as a career?
Yeah.
And the Design and Make Day was born. It has evolved, but essentially we invite, because the Manufacturing Assembly Network is all Midlands based members very broadly.
Yep.
We do stretch that a bit. We go down as far south as just north of Luton, and we go as far north as where are we? Up into Staffordshire.
Okay.
And we go as far west as Hereford and as far east as Leicester. But what we try and do is we have a one-day event, and every member invites as many schools as possible in their catchment.
Yep.
To come along. We fund it. There's no charge to the school. All they've got to do is put a team of up to 5 together from the school, along with a teacher that has to host them.
Yep.
And they come along for the day. We get as many schools involved. It's usually hosted by an academic establishment. In previous years, it's been Warwick Manufacturing Group.
Okay. Yeah.
So they can see the academic sort of facilities around and support around manufacturing. And they come on. And it started off with just 6 schools when we first did it 6 years ago. We had a very difficult uptake. It was challenging to engage with the schools, get them to commit, and then get them to turn up.
Yeah.
We had 6 schools turn up, and essentially that day, everyone is given a blind brief, the same blind brief. So there's this challenge. So, I don't know, we want you to carry this weight across this distance as fast as possible. Yeah. There's a box of bits. Balsa wood, sellotape, glue, some tools, bits and pieces. Go away, come up with a design, and then make it. And then you'll test it on this track or off this firing iron or whatever it is they've got to make. Yeah. They test it once, then they see it all fails, goes dismally wrong. They refine the design, remake it, retest it. And then they go into the afternoon session having got their refined triple tested design if they've got through 3 or 4 cycles of development, and they compete against each other for the best manufacturing solution, the most innovative solution, and the one that hits the brief actually goes the furthest distance or whatever that is. Yeah. And then there's 3 prizes, one for each of those, and one of the schools gets that. We throw in the mix a teacher's challenge, so they have to compete. We put 3 teachers from different schools together, or maybe 2 or 3 teams of teachers. So they're competing with the pupils as well, Brilliant. Which is really interesting. They've never won, which is great. They've never won. And then we might even throw some of the MAN Group members in as a team as well to have a go at competing with it. We're several challenges in now, having launched projectiles. We've carried weights across precipices. We've done cars and trains along tracks and other things, but we've grown the event. We're up to, probably this year, we might get up to 30 schools.
Wow.
Which is from those sort of beginnings of just 6. And once they're in, the schools come back again and again and again. Because the prizes, we've given away 3D printing machines, and, the sponsorships going up with it. So we're getting people engaging with that as well to sponsor and give away some really fancy prizes, which go back to the schools for use in lessons and that sort of stuff. So it's working well, and it's getting to a point where it's a bit of a beast for a small network to actually develop and deliver. So we quite like it, and we think it's very scalable, and we really would like to take it nationally with the right backing. And actually, it's a great model. And there are 1 or 2 people out there doing similar things, but hey, that's what it is. Hopefully, it brings more people into a STEM career.
The more people talking about it and getting involved, the better. That's absolutely fantastic the way that's grown. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall watching the teachers squirm around trying to come up with the best solution. I bet the kids absolutely love it, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do. They absolutely do. And you're very welcome to come along to the next one in July if you wanted to and meet some people. No
Be
problem
more
at
than
all. The
happy
more
to.
we share it with, the better.
Yeah, be more than happy to. Thanks for shedding some light on the on that challenge. Just in terms of Brandauer, then, see Brandauer and Co. Wow. Now, I'm not a Brummie by birth. I grew up in Bristol, but I've lived here since 1997. I married a Brummie, so I'm sort of part Brummie by marriage. I've got such a fondness for Birmingham and the West Midlands. Brandauer has always been one of those companies that crops up in conversation when you think of manufacturing, when you think of the sort of history of industry around these parts. Carl Chin, who was on my show last year or the year before, always seems to recognize and mention Brandauer as one of the one of those sort of standout companies from the Midlands and Birmingham in particular. One of the oldest businesses from this region. I think you were founded, was it 162 years ago, 1862? I mean, there
Yeah.
can't be many businesses around these days that survive sort of 50 years, let alone hundreds of years. So,
Yeah.
what's the secret of the longevity of C. Brandauer? I mean, we've had so many changes in society, in the world, in Birmingham, in manufacturing over that time. What's kept it going that long? And also, to add to that, let me add to that question. Um, from your leadership perspective, what was significant the most, do you think, in terms of what you did personally as a leader during that sort of crisis management of the pandemic?
Hmm. Wow, that's some big questions there. So just let me deal with them one by one. So Carl Chin, first of all, is my favourite historian. If he talks about us, he's doing something right. So that's
Yes.
brilliant. Um, Brandauer have been, well, I'm sat in Newtown in Birmingham, right on the edge of the Jewellery Quarter and city centre. It's basically where we were founded. We were about 300 metres behind me here is where the original factory was.
Yeah.
Our heritage is here. And we are absolutely in the heartland of what I would call fine precision pressing work, fine metal work, being involved in being based geographically in the Jewellery Quarter. And there's still a lot of that cottage industry that goes on.
Yep.
Our difference is we do it in much higher volume, um, generally to consumer markets. The business set out making pen nibs, and that's why Carl talks formally about it. That's all they did.
Yeah.
And they survived on that, but from 1862 through till sort of 1950s-ish. One interruption, two interruptions with two world wars,
Yep.
um, where they were drafted out, seconded to manufacture for the war effort.
Yeah.
I think what they learned from that was that they can diversify and they
Okay.
can apply their knowledge and capability to other markets. And that's exactly what the business did from the mid 1950s all the way through to today.
Okay.
I might look it, but I can only take the benefit for the last 13 years.
Yeah.
I've only been here 13 years. But what we do as a business is A, keep it safe. We want the business to be safe. So we try and make as low a risk decisions as we possibly can to better the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And broadly, that's built on being diverse. And diversity comes in many forms in terms of business. And that is geographically diverse. So we want to be to supplying as many different countries as we possibly can.
Yep.
Sectorally diverse, so supplying into as many markets as we can. So at the moment, I've got 10, what I would call more than 5%. So that, healthcare, automotive, electronics, white goods, telecoms, and so on and so forth. I won't
Yep.
name them all, but it's having all of those sectoral presence. And then the other way of being diverse is in the way you create revenue. And I suppose this is more recent, a revelation for us, I suppose. So you see us as a manufacturer of metal bits. Well, that goes back a few steps. We need the knowledge to know how to best manufacture them.
Yeah.
We need to have the ability to manufacture progression tooling, design manufacture progression tooling. That therefore means I can put it in a press, put material through it, which I need to know the supply chain to enable me to do that.
Yep.
Then I make the metal bits. So we took a long, hard look at ourselves during the pandemic and really knuckled down on understanding built on the ground rules of diversity of sector and geography,
Mm.
look at our revenue streams and actually see where we can make the biggest impact and therefore the better margins.
Yeah.
So the business today is now involved in a lot more things than we used to be. We're actually getting paid for our knowledge. We're helping customers develop new processes, new designs that they potentially want to do in-house, but
Yeah.
they haven't necessarily got the full knowledge and background in how to do it. So rather than give that knowledge away, we're working in partnership, and that manifests itself in all sorts of different ways. But essentially, it's a consultancy or an advisory arm of the business. That's
Yeah.
working really well. We still manufacture tooling, but I've already discussed how we do that differently now.
Yeah.
And we control our tooling better. We specify before we start. We have a menu of tooling that customers pick from. So they make their own choice over what quality of tooling they go for, where it's made, and how we make it. And then invariably, because of the stuff that we do is quite advanced, the easy stuff goes to the customers once we've done all of that bit. The hardest stuff stays here because they're
Yeah.
not up to that. So
Yeah.
that's the last bit of it. And we actually then stamp the product for them, the more difficult product. And I suppose that's the core difference. We've recognized what our strengths are. We've avidly tried to improve how we deliver those strengths
Yeah.
and make sure that there's a business case that we can actually benefit from in delivering them. All of those things we didn't do that well. And that's bolstered all sorts of stuff's come out of that R&D, but all of it is around diversifying, innovation, and trying to pivot into new markets, new industries with some new offerings. That's
Yeah.
why we're here today. And that fundamentally is successful because of the team I've got around me. You know, I'll come back to your second question. How have I made that happen? That's by employing 60 people who are bloody brilliant, and a lot better than me. And that's fundamental as well. So engaging all the youngsters that we've already talked about, bringing them into the business, giving them access to some of the projects we're working on, giving
Yeah.
them the opportunity to contribute to that and do something, suggest something different, taking some low risks by working on R&D projects, which are funded by Innovate UK. So that
Yeah.
reduces the risk financially on us. That's got us into all new customer bases, opportunities to supply different markets, different industries with different products. So people are the key.
Wow. Well, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that's just come out of what you've just said. That I think maybe there must be a lot of other businesses that manufacture things but aren't maybe leveraging that sort of skill, knowledge, and expertise that they've got. What you've done in effect, in addition to that diversification piece that is so key, you found a way of monetizing your secret sauce, if you like. Your skills, your technical prowess. And so you're not just a manufacturing business, you've got all of these add-on services, if you like, and it all sort of feeds. It's almost like a circular, people go on about the circular economy, don't they? Well, this is
It is.
almost like, it just feeds back into your business, doesn't it? The
Yeah.
consultancy
I
and
mean, the successful markets, some of these new business models that happen, that are, I'm just trying to think of some, whether it's eBay or whether it's Uber.
yeah,
And if you notice, one of the core things that they do is the client actually picks the level of luxury or the level what they want. It's picking from a set of ingredients that then creates a price that you're going to pay.
yeah,
And that's something fundamentally that I don't think necessarily that in manufacturing people can do very easily. And what we've tried to do is to enable them to do that. If you want a tool made in China because it's £20,000 instead of me making it for £40,000, that's fine. But if you want me to run it, and I'm going to charge you more because that tool will come in, it will not be as good as the tool I make. I'll be doing more maintenance on it. I will be letting you down more regularly because that tool's out the press more than it is in the press.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more investment up front gives you a lower piece price for the lifetime of the product.
Yeah.
And it's getting that story across. You very did often not get that, but if you build it into your feasibility model, which we now do, people pick the journey they want to take. And if they take the wrong one and they pay dearly for it, that's up to them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe it is the right journey for them. Maybe they don't want to spend a lot up front because they haven't got the budget.
Yeah.
But equally, they're going to pay a premium in one way or another as they move forward, whether it's with supply chain disruption, all the things associated with a long supply chain.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. So we know per part supplied, if you include the tooling cost, that for us to make that tool, we are more competitive than the Far East. And I can prove it. I've got contracts won in the last 6 months in China, in India, and in Mexico. So I think customers are beginning to get it.
Yeah.
It's the landed project or lifetime cost that needs to be considered, not a snapshot of a decision. I can get a tool for half the price elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic advert, isn't it, for, reshoring and getting more stuff made here in the UK, isn't it? That over many years, I'd always heard this sort of notion that it's cheaper to get stuff manufactured abroad, and a lot of the tooling went abroad, decades ago, and it's like, well, how do you compete? Well, you've just proven that you can. It is happening here in the UK. So with all this big push for reshoring and making more stuff here, yes, some things might be a little bit more expensive at the front end, but over the longer term, and this is where the FDs and CFOs need to be listening in. It is financially viable and possible, and a very good option to consider getting more stuff made here in the UK. So, yeah, well done you, and thanks for explaining that. It's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of innovation, typically leads to growth. As you say, Brandauer have sort of diversified. You've continued to grow as an organisation. How have you sort of kept pace with in terms of technology? So the demands that are constantly on a modern manufacturing plant or process. How have you kept pace with technology? I mean, are you doing anything dramatically different than you were, say, 20 years ago, in terms of, the plant and equipment that you're using, how much digitalization have you, sort of instigated at Brandauer? Can you just give us an idea as to, how you've sort of moved along that sort of path, Rowan?
Yeah. I mean, we've moved on massively when I sit and consider it in the cold light of day. We are now a paperless factory, broadly speaking. I mean, we still do print drawings off to look at certain things. You need to. There's nothing like a hard copy drawing sometimes when you're trying to resolve an engineering issue. However, that said, all of our works orders, all of our ticketing, everything now is paperless, essentially, in the factory.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we've got different types of presses, so different technologies that we've brought into the business that are suited to different types of jobs. Whereas we were very much, that's the press we use. We're always going to use that for everything we quote. Everything we run. And then in terms of how we monitor our performance, so in terms of OEE or efficiencies, in terms of breakdowns, in terms of maintenance issues, all of that we've now gone digital with as well. So we've embraced quite a lot in terms of both sort of ancillary technology as well as the core technology we've got. It has all changed. How and why? I suppose it's the constant demands of being more profitable as well as being more competitive. that's the market pull really. Um, and the other thing is just the constant hunger really to always want to do stuff better. That's in our DNA, that's in our culture, and that's something that um, we've driven for as a result of that.
Yeah.
Um, how how have we gone about it? That's a little bit different. I think there's two core activities that have really helped us accelerate our adoption and investment in digital technology. Um, the first one is working collaboratively.
Yeah.
And we've talked about collaborations already a little bit, but whether it be Man Group, who I've already mentioned, or whether it be through Make UK, or whether it be through uh, a supply chain partner, I make it my business to go around as many people's factories as I possibly can because that's
Yeah.
where all the best ideas are.
Yeah.
That's where all the
Yeah.
best, make it a good advanced manufacturer. You'll find stuff that people are doing really well. You might find stuff they're not doing so well as well, and you
Yeah.
avoid it. But it's nice to share and learn. And I think one thing I am happy to say is there's definite culture of collaboration in manufacturing, and it's getting stronger.
Yeah.
And I think even more recently, the sort of the last 2 or 3 years, I've been privileged to go around my competitors' factories and I've invited them back to mine. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. We're not really competitors. We're always in slightly different markets. There's certain occasions when we do compete, but you respect that. And
Yeah.
that's important to have that bit of competition there. But going to their factory, seeing what they're doing, understanding what your competition are doing has been a revelation for me because
Yeah.
they're doing some stuff really well. They're doing some stuff not so well, and some stuff I don't really want to do anyway.
Yes.
Understanding each other, you hopefully tread on your toes less and all get better. So that whole collaborative thing has really pushed me and the company to look at different things and different stuff that people are having successes with and try and
Yeah.
embrace it ourselves. The second strand is around funding, grant support. As an
Okay.
SME, we want to take as little financial risk as we can. So any grant support that enables us to do R&D or investment in stuff perhaps we might struggle to if it wasn't there.
Mm.
And there's some game change funding out there which I would recommend to SMEs and medium-sized businesses. Innovate UK and all of their arms are absolutely fantastic. They might
Okay.
seem daunting. They absolutely take the risk out of trying out new things. And usually it's a 2 or 3 year project.
Yeah.
It partially pays for one of your more expensive costs in the business, sort of somewhere between 50 and 70% of the cost as well, for stuff
Okay.
you would perhaps want to do anyway.
Yeah.
But you're getting that you're getting that as a give back, whether it's
Yeah.
successful or not. So that's really good. The other one I got to mention is Made Smarter. So that was a
Okay.
pilot that we were a beneficiary of in the pilot stages. It's going national. There's a lot of rumblings about it's not that good or it's too difficult to access.
Mm.
Rubbish. Pick the project that you think will make the biggest impact from all the
Yeah.
other work you're
Yeah.
doing, and then go to Made Smarter and ask them to help you. And they will. They'll help you through that journey, not just in monetary terms, because they will, but
Yeah.
they'll help you in terms of knowledge and resource to help you deliver it. It's a really good thing. So you need the passion to do it. You need to go and copy lots of other people and see what they're doing and what you can learn from. And then you can go out and find the funding to do it and then get on and do it.
Putting it like that, it sounds very, very simple. But again, a shining example of what can be achieved. I love the fact that you've gone out around the competitor factories and enabled the reciprocation of that. And I suppose in a lot of industries, that's almost a bit of a taboo, isn't it? But I suppose it helps you get to that best practice point. I suppose you're always looking for improvements as a business anyway. In fact, I know you are. But that sort of collaboration and sort of mixing with elements of the competition, and there's always going to be a bit of crossover, isn't there, even if they're not direct competitors. But it's just a bit of an eye-opener, isn't it, in terms of maybe some of the things for you to stay away from, impart a bit of knowledge to another business, and that pays dividends because people like helping other people, don't they? So if you're, seem to support another business in a small way, then that might
I
pay
agree.
back.
And a lot of people poo-poo it because people have trade secrets. Well, don't share them.
Yes.
Keep them to yourself. They're the ones to protect and protect avidly.
Yeah.
But the other stuff you can. And I am a firm believer that you get out of industry what you put into it. It's the
Absolutely.
same with apprentices. Why would I take on an apprentice when I only have a 25% conversion rate? I get that question a lot. And it's like, well, what if you didn't? What if you
Yeah.
actually fixed your conversion rate and looked after them properly and you got it up to 75%?
Yeah.
And even if you do lose them, they're going off to benefit somebody else who might be a customer, or they might come back to you into 10 years' time and be your next, FD or ops director or whatever. I think you've got to have a much bigger picture for the greater good of the sector than
Yes.
necessarily look at it down a lens like that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I love that. And when you think of it, any business that takes on an apprentice, regardless of how long that they're with your business, through your company investing in that person, you've made a difference to that individual, haven't you? You've got that individual started off in a
Yeah.
manufacturing career, and
Mm.
hopefully they will go on and have a great career, families, and then they can support their kids and all the rest of it. And it's almost like you're a provider of some of the building blocks of society. So it's not just,
Yeah.
people need to stop thinking so in such a binary way. There's a much bigger picture. So that you got corporate social responsibility and all these sort of things. And I know you sort of support a few things in the local community. But when you're putting people through apprenticeships, that's a long-term thing. Hopefully it's sort of lifetime skills that they're learning, whether they stay with you for their career or not.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, isn't it? And everybody should get involved, really.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've covered quite a lot of ground so far. There's a couple of things I just wanted to have a quick chat with you about. One of them is your role as chair of the National Advisory Board at Make UK. So help me understand that a little bit more. What is your remit there, and what are the what sort of main challenges are you seeing from that role that manufacturers need support with, Rowan?
The list is never ending. Uh, um, so Make UK are a national membership body for people who make stuff.
Yep.
So very focused on engineering and manufacturing. I've touched on the fact that they offer training provision, and they have a fantastic training hub over in Aston in Birmingham.
They do.
Where you can do apprenticeships and stuff like that, technical apprenticeships. But I would say that's very much secondary, and that's all I thought they did, if I'm honest. Until more recently, when this power of collaboration really came to the front during the pandemic, and there were one or two partners or membership bodies that really had an impact and helped us through what was a really challenging time.
Yeah.
The one was the CBM, Confederation of British Metal Forming.
Yep.
And I say that they're much smaller than Make UK, but they're very focused on what we do.
Yeah.
And the other was Make UK. And Make UK are very good at lobbying for the greater good of manufacturers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they came very much to the front of that, as I say, during the pandemic, trying to tailor policy at very short notice to respond to what was going on in the world. None of us knew what was happening and what to do and what was right or what was wrong, but they had a fundamental high impact success rate on lobbying government for what manufacturing needed.
Yeah.
And I respect him for that, really. So I got involved, really. I got invited as a member to go onto their advisory board, just as a board member in the West Midlands. And it didn't take long before I was chair of the West Midlands Advisory Board. And then they asked me to chair the national. And really, that just really is what's the word? It's a springboard. It's a way of getting information channeled from their membership back to government. They write
Right.
their
Okay.
policy and ask what are the big asks of both current government and, as we sit here today, potentially a new government
Yeah.
with a new colour coming in at some point later this year. And they are very good at it, but they can only be good as their members' voices. So the idea of the advisory board is to steer them in the
Yeah.
best way to get that, and also draw out that advice from the membership, which is done through this reasonably elaborate way of they've got regional advisory boards that then all report into the national one.
Right. Okay.
And I walked into a national board which had a lot of the scars of the pandemic,
Mm.
where they got people sort of it was just diluted what it was trying to achieve, what it was trying to do, and they asked me to come and help them with it, and we're in the process of streamlining that, I suppose, and trying to improve it as I try
Yeah.
and do everything I take on. But yeah, it's a very powerful organisation, and they're making big impacts in
Yeah.
government at a time when it's very difficult to get your voice heard for money, to be quite frank.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's needed, isn't it? UK manufacturing, like most sectors, really struggled through the pandemic, and I suppose without the support of organisations like Make UK, it could have been much worse than what it was. Many businesses have been able to survive and actually thrive through the sort of support that they're able to give. So, okay, thank you for sharing that. Without wanting to get too political, I don't know enough about politics to do a politics show anyway. But in terms of what might happen moving forward, what is, I guess you probably already answered this question in a way. Your prediction for the future role and support of UK government in manufacturing will depend on who we get, I suppose. Will we get an industrial strategy? Will we get a minister for manufacturing? What do we need government to do? Regardless of who it is.
I think the foundations of a cross-party industrial strategy, whatever you want to call it, are
Yeah,
absolutely vital
yeah,
for the success of our sector. And that we're getting some traction on that, but it's
yeah,
not there yet.
yeah,
I think what manufacturing needs, or the sector needs, is stability. So less change, the better, once we got it on an even keel. And I have to say, whatever you think of government, and I'm not a particular big fan of our current government, but Make UK and the policies they've driven for,
yeah,
last autumn statement actually had some quite significant breakthroughs in recognition for
yeah,
manufacturing and therefore the funding associated with it. What we don't want to see is that falling away if we change to a different party government.
yeah,
Um, so it's important to lobby both of the big parties, and that's what Make UK are trying to do, because an industrial strategy that's cross-party will underpin what we need and where the problems are,
yeah.
and anyone can act on that as it goes through. You want me to tell you what the main ones are? I suppose I can't speak for everyone because everyone's got slightly different challenges,
Mm,
but demand and stability in demand is a big one for us, which means we
okay.
need some certainty, we need some confidence, we need, you know, our customers need to feel confident that they can invest in the UK, and it's a great place to invest and a
Yeah,
safe place to invest. Um, Environmental, net zero, whatever you want to call it, whatever you term that as, that's a big challenge. And that was thrown out there of what we've got to do. And then very quickly, it looks like both the parties are changing their mind on the importance of that and how much
mm,
money's in it and what the targets are for it. That has quite big effects
yeah,
on investment decisions by our customers, and our customers are all investing in those things,
yeah,
and that might lead to more or less business depending on if they invest now or later.
yeah.
And then consumer habits change. So you've seen what's happened to EV car sales as a
Yes.
result of pushing out the drive for net zero. So all of that has a net effect. So it comes a little bit back to stability, but around that, um, costs, input costs, again, big challenge for the industry. We're not competitively making our own energy yet. We need to compare us against most other countries, and we're uncompetitive
Yeah.
generating our own energy. If we want to be energy independent, we've got to do it in a way that's commercially viable. My energy costs jumped from 100 grand a year to 500,000 a year, and we've managed to get it back down to about 250,000.
Okay.
But that's not for another 6 months. Um, so we are, that's the sort of scale of it, and we're not a big energy user.
Yeah.
So there's a big
Yeah.
challenge, and all our other costs, input costs, raw material, wages, all the inflationary pressures you see. That's another big challenge. So I could go on forever, really, but there's a lot of challenges. But those for me would be my sort of top four,
Yeah.
and that needs to be underpinned by a nice long-term, slow beat support and strategy that we the government and industry can plan to, and we ain't
Yeah.
got one yet.
Absolutely. So we all need to be carrying on talking about it and asking for it. As a lot of people, you see it on LinkedIn all the time, which is great. We need an industrial strategy. There's a lot of people, yourself included, championing UK manufacturing and what we actually need. So looking forward to the rest of the year then, Rowan. Any important dates or anything either on the Brandauer Man Group or the Make UK calendar that's of significant importance for our listeners to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots going on. So the Design and Make Day that I talked about,
Yep.
that's planned in July.
Okay.
Again, details available on the Man Group website. Make UK are they're imminently, I think it's the 27th of February. Again, if you go on their website, you'll get that confirmed. Is their manufacturers conference in
Yes.
London.
Yep.
I've been 3 times to that, and I can thoroughly recommend it. Not least of which they have great speakers, but the
Yeah.
networking that goes on is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And then I think probably another really good one to get other manufacturers involved with is their National Manufacturing Day. And
Okay.
that goes on in September. Again, if you look on their website, and that's about opening up your factories for young people to come and get a
Yes.
taster.
Yeah.
Um, and we every year we actually extend it. We do it from August to September over a 2-month period.
Okay.
We open our doors for family members to come and do paid work experience at the factory
Yeah.
for up to 4 weeks. And it gives us an extra pair of hands, but it also gives tasters for what it's like, what life's like in a advanced manufacturing facility as well. And it works really well. And I bury that in under the remit of manufacturing, National Manufacturing Day.
Brilliant. So lots to look forward to then throughout the year, and of
Right.
course we've got all the different exhibitions as usual. The trade exhibitions throughout the year. So lots to look forward to. Well, Rowan, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you today on Insights for Manufacturing. Thank you very much for coming on, and congratulations once more on your recent MBE. It's not just a fantastic personal achievement, and it is, but what a great advert for what can be achieved, and shining a spotlight on UK manufacturing as a whole. So yeah, thanks for doing whatever you're doing. It's having a good knock-on effect on the wider industry, hopefully.
I'm still getting used to it, if I'm honest, Jeff. But I'm absolutely staggered to get it, but honoured to get it as well. And
Yeah.
like you say, if it can just sort of recognise or promote another person to come into manufacturing and get as excited and passionate as I do about it, then it's done its job for me.
Yeah.
And there was more than one of us recognised in this New Year's honours list in the manufacturing sector. And that was nice to see as well.
Yeah.
And I knew one or two other people who tirelessly drive to promote it and attract people into it and tell people that it is alive and kicking.
Yeah.
So it needs, hopefully, if that's all it does, as well as make me very happy and proud, then I'm happy.
Well, let's hope it's a trend that we see more moving forward, more people from industry, getting recognised in the New Year's Honours Awards. Brilliant.
Definitely.
Okay, well, that wraps up today's episode. Hope you've enjoyed our discussion. Thanks again to Rowan Crozier, CEO at Brandauer. Thank you for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time, and bye-bye.